Hi everybody, welcome to what I consider to be the most important chapter in our textbook that we're going to look at, and this is the observation tools and techniques from the Sullivan textbook. I'm going to approach this chapter a little bit differently. The day I'm recording this, I'm only going to talk about the first part of it, and then I'm going to stop the tape and I'm going to upload this separately. When we do the tools, I haven't determined how I want to do that because there's part of me that says maybe I have to hold the book up to the recorder so that you can see the tool, but my expectation is if you're watching the video, you're going to follow along with the tools and you'll have an idea for them. And that's probably going to take longer. So I haven't thought about my approach for the second part of this yet, but I'm getting there. It is the most important chapter in the entire course. And I say that, I mean that, I believe that. This is the most important chapter in the entire course. It's unique. It gives you forms. It gives you different ways to look at teacher observation. We have a problem in our country that we just naturally snap our fingers and we tie an observation into the evaluation form that they use. Try to use observational tools in your practices. If you can do it, it'll help you improve instruction and make a difference to your teaching staff. Then they're not scared when that evaluation takes place. If you were to try these out and gain experience using these tools, I think it could improve morale. It could make more teachers comfortable with watching other teachers and they'll feel comfortable giving feedback. And the tools are very well designed and easy to use. Everybody in this room, despite any level of experience that you have, you should understand this. They are quantitative and qualitative. I think that is good as well. I think it's extremely important that you see what some of the quantitative and qualitative tools look like, especially the qualitative ones, because those ones are going to offer you the opportunity for conversation with the teachers based on direct script verbiage of what was said in a classroom. The quantitative ones, the data can be used, and as long as you understand how to present it to a teacher, that's probably the smartest thing that you can do. I think you'll get something out of looking over each of these, even though some of these are guided reading, early instructional practices. I used this book when I was teaching elementary ed and special ed and early childhood ed. I was working with K-8 students, but I liked it and I thought it was good. So some of these are specific for that, but I like it because I think it's a good approach and I think it's good to see them. So here are the 10 guidelines for observation. I'm going to present these and then we're going to talk about each one of them. So take a minute and read them. I'll give you about 15 seconds to look over these. So we're going to talk about each one of these. So the purpose of an observation is really for the teacher to say what they liked, what they think could be improved. You need to create a culture where teachers feel comfortable saying that and understanding what that looks like. And it takes another person to help a teacher see something that might not have been there regularly in their teaching practice. The observation needs to be specific for that teacher in that classroom. I always looked, in working with early childhood teachers, everything I did was reading oriented. I got taught it all the time. We're going to look at this in terms of reading, in terms of Marie Clay, in terms of literacy first. Everything we did we had this reading approach. So think about the subject area and that the feedback in the form is designed with that in mind and what's appropriate. So you have to describe what occurred and then interpret what it means. Do the description first, don't interpret. It's not fair to the teacher without having a full description because you might not know where the teacher was going. And you're going to think differently than the teacher does. We all do, but it's how it's presented. So, much like above, describe behavior and don't interpret it. The interpretation is quiet afterwards. It's done not in contact of the teacher, and really when you're looking at the behaviors that occurred during the observation, and you do it privately and quietly in your office. Don't do it while the teacher's in the room. I beg that of you. The teacher should know what tool is being used for the observation. if the purpose of it is to figure out if the teacher calls on different people, you should discuss that with the teacher first. If you say, this is the tool I was using, here's the observation, you failed, the teacher's blindsided and they're not going to have a good perception of how the observation went. If the focus is on students, the teacher needs to be aware of that, not worried about their teaching practice, but worried about what the students are learning and what the students are getting out of that observation procedure. So, observers are most likely going to be former teachers. We all know this. Don't lose sight of this. We all have our own beliefs on how a class should be taught and how somebody should be learning. When we're observing in our particular subject area, that can even be a bigger challenge because I'm likely to say, well, you're not teaching this the way that I used to teach it when I was teaching economics, so I don't like your method. Or it could create a different kind of bias where I say, okay, you're an economics teacher, you're going to have a better observation. So you have to understand that everybody teaches differently. So interpretation and description are different. You describe behaviors of what are occurring. The interpretation is how you see it, what could have been done better, what could have been done from a different perspective. You discuss this with your teaching staff and see if you have the same interpretations they did. At the high school level, you don't know everything, and you've heard me say this a billion times. As high school teachers, you do not know everything that's going on because you're not going to know the curriculum that's going on in special subjects. You're not going to know the math curriculum. Don't lose sight of that as the observer. So observe one specific behavior. I'm going to hit you with 42 tools throughout this lecture. You should only have one or two in mind. When you do too much, you lose sight of the observation. So please don't do that. So the protocol, why you're doing the classroom visit, what it's going to look like, what time, should be discussed, and it should be planned in advance. It should be planned in advance with the teacher. It should be discussed with them, especially if the person conducting the observation is a teacher themselves. That way they know why they're in the building. The person being observed has to know how they're going to be assessed, if it's to benefit the person that's observing them or if it's to benefit them. And that's a big idea. So don't draw conclusions based on one observation. And yes, this is an office-based reference. Yes, that is the jump to conclusions mat. Don't make judgments based off of one observation. You need to do a number of them before you say the teacher can do this, this, or that. Be sure you allow the teacher the opportunity to improve on their capabilities when they potentially can. So the next 42 slides in part 2 of this video, this will all look at the observation tools that are discussed in the textbook. In order for this to be effective for you, you have to follow along with the book. There's no other way to do it. We're going to discuss each one of them, and I'm going to give you my opinions on which classroom types they can be used in. But in class, this is going to take up a lot of our time, so want you to be aware of that. So I'm going to stop right here. This is the end, and we're going to pick this up where we're actually looking at the tools when you have the Sullivan book in front of you. Thank you.